Second World War. We plan to conduct the assembly of this forum. Why this is urgent and topical? Because everyone knows what's happening in Ukraine today, what's happening in Russia. Today, the fight is going with the after effect, not with the reason of what has happened between the two countries, that for quite a long time were living in peace and freedom, and suddenly there is a war, annexation of Crimea, and suddenly there are subversive agents in eastern Ukraine, and God forbid Russian tanks can go farther. Why they can go farther? Because if Putin and his, I would say, stooges will feel that the authorities lose all the capital, they will resort to extreme measures, and namely a more serious war intervention in order to spin out the campaign of pseudo-patriotism that's happening in Russia today. On the wave of this patriotism, this takes place, all this takes place. The so-called rise in Putin's rankings, although I assure you that in Russia there are very many sober-minded people who love Ukraine, who have supported Maidan from the very first days of this revolution, and we have stated this, former political prisoners, but many Russians, regrettably, are poisoned with the Kremlin propaganda, and they started to think in another way, like Germans were poisoned with propaganda by Goebbels in the Third Reich. They did not understand what was going on. Today they are talking about the great Russian nation, and this is a mark of fascism in itself. Another mark of fascism is corporate merger of all the branches of power, courts, business elite, mass media, and, so to say, some public activists who were just bought. So these are the elements of fascism that are there in Russia today, but not in Ukraine. And we, former political prisoners and my friends, are surprised at this unprecedented campaign of lies that's been spinning out by the Kremlin, that as if there are fascists in Ukraine and Kyiv. I've been here for almost 3 weeks, and I saw that there are no Banderites with automated rifles here, no patrols, and you can speak Russian in Maidan. No one discriminates you, no one beats you or abuses you. Just try to go to downtown Moscow with a poster, "I support Ukraine." You will be put into you will be detained immediately and will be interrogated on the point, why don't you support Kremlin but support Ukraine? And I emphasize that this is about the state, not about the people. Of course, the people are subjected to this Goebbels-like Kremlin propaganda, and we still have to distinguish between the Russian people and the Kremlin, because it is Kremlin and political business elite that are responsible for this unprecedented campaign of lies and this political adventurism, military adventurism against Ukraine. This will have, for Kremlin, I think, in the immediate future, very serious after effects. And my forecast is that 2 or 3 years and the power in Russia will be changed. Otherwise, everyone will be in a very sore state. We will try to do our best for this to happen as soon as possible, and this has to be done by way of, I would say, aggressive propaganda, both in the West and in Russia, because in the West also not everybody understands what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. Thank you. Good afternoon, Kateryna, Kuvyta, AutoMaydan, Kyiv. Why we are here? Because we have launched this program on this 22nd of June with Hetman, and we held large-scale actions in Cherkasy and Kyiv with the participation of AutoMaydan, because this is a rather widespread network in Ukraine, and we are mobile and we are able to draw attention to some problem in the society. As far as the idea of the information counter-propaganda against the fascist politics of Putin, this was the first thing that had to be done. We are lagging behind for many steps in this propaganda war. My view is that the war that's going on in the East will very soon end with the victory of Ukraine. We will protect our territorial integrity, but the information war will go on. There is no doubt that Putin will try to continue to pressurize Ukraine. We have seen last week his attempts to put his hands into our affairs when Medvedchuk suddenly appeared. So the information war is very powerful, and many people who are in Ukraine and understand very well what's going on in the information field, all those attempts to lie. And many people do not understand that such things as Ukrainian choice and newspaper Vesti is the direct propaganda of Kremlin done with the hands of Medvedchuk, and this is happening before our own eyes. And of course, people in the West are subject to this propaganda because there's mass investment into mass media in USA, Canada, and other countries. Really, Europeans do not have the full understanding of what's happening in Ukraine. But in principle, our approach is about not introducing the sections. The politicians of the highest level understand this very well, and our approaches are addressed to them. But the matter is that in the West, all the processes are very strongly supported from beneath, from below. So if the society understands what's going on here and they pressurize the politicians who are in power, it will be even easy in Ukraine to fight this propaganda. Because in the West, there are, first of all, more transparent elections, and if politicians on the top see the desire of the society, they will have to act. They will forget about their personal interests like gas interests if the societies in the West understand all the processes and events, because the society in the West are not as for sale as some representatives of elites. So it is very important to wage this propaganda. And we see that we had enough strength to oust Yanukovych, to overcome this criminal regime, and I'm sure that Ukraine will have enough strength to start this peaceful destruction of the Kremlin power, and the Kremlin will not exist in the way it exists now.
Please stay here. Now the questions. Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, please tell With who? With Russian organizations do you cooperate? Is there such a movement in Russia? If we started some campaign, if we were to start some campaign, we should probably do that with Russians. I'm trying to compare that with the Third Reich. It's like anti-fascists in Berlin in 1937. Who would they go to? To the National Socialist Party or to some other parties in the Nazi Germany? Who could they cooperate with then? Of course, there are, Solidarity, Republican Party, who fully support our campaign, and also in Petersburg and Moscow. But to do what we can do here in the West, in the United States, in Australia, this is impossible to do it in Russia. They start to disconnect internet resources. What press conferences can we talk about? This has to be approved, and no one will allow to go to the center of Moscow or St. Petersburg with such a slogan, or like "Stop Fascism in Russia." No comment, basically, to that. And what are the specific steps? We will be trying to launch that campaign and promote it in Europe. This will be fundraising. At the same time, at least we start here in Ukraine. Today, I most probably will have the meeting with Mikhail Saakashvili, who came here. Maybe he will give some piece of advice. At least there are many people who understand how important this information war is between the West, and the West is losing. Ukraine is losing 100% to the Kremlin. I believe we will find some support here, but we will be looking for support in England, the US, Canada, Germany. That will be the fundraising and PR campaign, so that people understand why fascism in Russia. Not like many people say that it's in Ukraine and Kyiv. We will be doing the same in Berlin, Paris, London, Toronto, New York. Same volunteers, people who are not paid. There are many volunteers who will be happy to take these slogans to the centers of the capitals of Europe, of America, and we'll try and we'll be changing the mentality of Western society, Western politicians. I have a question to you. I read your blog, and you say that Putin was brought to power by Yeltsin. How could it happen that a person who did not want to be in power is now trying to occupy other countries and has created such a system that many Western countries cannot defeat, including the US? Well, I know Putin. I've known Putin personally, and I've known him for 20 years, and I talked to him when he was the deputy to Sobchak back in Smolny, in Leningrad, and he changed. He is now absolutely different from what he was 20 years ago. He was put to Moscow, and then he started, well, not to grow, but he started doing something because of what oligarchs and Yeltsin put him to this position. And he changed. Even his friends are saying that he's a different personality, and most probably he will finish up tragically. There are people who know him, who've known him longer than I. Much depends on him, but not everything. There are oligarchs around him who are concerned about the potential loss of their capital and also the power. that feeds up on energy and gas. There are dozens of thousands of different institutions that get good money, and they thrive on that. And that is like the these are like snakes who will be trying to remain in power. If Putin leaves, it's like in Soviet times. All that could get disassembled, and they will lose everything. Not something, but absolutely everything. One more question to you, Kateryna. If you weeks ago, we had representatives of AutoMaydan here who were talking about this project of going to 15 capitals of Europe. Does that project coincide with the objectives of this campaign? Absolutely so. And that is why we got involved into this initiative of Hetman, because this is one of the aspects of information campaign, and we also have some resources to help German. AutoMaydan Kyiv in 10 days starts moving to Europe, and there will be 1 month's traveling, and the mission is to collect 1 million signatures of the citizens of the European Union to submit the petition to European Parliament requesting for Ukraine the status of the candidate to EU members. That is unprecedented campaign. So first, our representatives will meet with some activists in the capitals of Europe, and then they will be disseminating this information and promoting this campaign. And you will be taking these slogans, these mottos with you. This will be a very powerful information campaign. We have plenty of materials, video, photo, the stories by people who were at Maidan. Any other questions? Then I would like to thank you, success to you, and inform us about the results. We hope that we will stop fascism in Russia.